There is a worldwide anxiety epidemic, particularly among the youth. In this report, I look at the effect it has on people and what is seemingly a real cure that is kept under the radar. While everybody experiences some level of anxiety, depending on the situation they find themselves in, for many, it is a condition that is crippling. And anxiety can affect anybody. The rich and famous are not immune to it. Being in the public eye is not a help.
I don't know exactly what triggered my panic attacks, although I have a rough idea that it may have had something to do with being at a party, being surrounded by a lot of drunk people. I didn't like being in the space. I wanted to get away, and I just had a full-on panic attack. That was the first panic attack I'd ever had. It lasted from 11 p.m. at night until 5 a.m. in the morning in bursts. The thing with panic attacks is that they happen within 5 to 25 minutes. I think 25 minutes is literally the maximum amount of time that you can ever panic for, like full-on panic. And I was having bursts of panic all around the clock until 5 a.m. when I rang my dad and I made him come and get me. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the symptoms, what happens to you, and if this sounds like something that might be happening to you as well, then I hope this can kind of reaffirm things in your head and maybe help you as well. So the first thing that happens when you panic, you don't really ever know what you're panicking for. You don't always choose what makes you panic. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, so it's basically called the fight or flight. The best way of me describing this to you is your body sets itself up to either run away or to fight the problem. I think it kind of dates back to like caveman days where a wild boar would approach a caveman and he would think, I can either run away or I can fight the wild boar. So, okay, you're not going to be addressed with wild boars in this day and age, but if your body thinks it's in any kind of danger, regardless of whether you are or not, it will kick in. A lot of people who suffer with anxiety and panic attack just have a much weaker sympathetic nervous system. I was told that you're almost like the car in the street whose car alarm goes off from a little gust of wind, unlike all the other cars in the street whose car alarms will only ever go off when someone's smashing the window. Once your sympathetic nervous system has kicked in, it sets things off like adrenaline. Adrenaline will be released around your body. Because of the adrenaline, you will sweat, but you'll be cold. I get hot shivers. Other things that happen are you lose feeling in your hands and your feet. You feel very claustrophobic. When I panic, I have to get out of any situation that I'm in. I don't like people around me. You feel smothered. Sounds and smells become heightened. Everything's louder, everything's busier, everything smells really bad. All your senses are like, this is horrible. I also feel very, very sick when I panic, and this is because your digestive system shuts down, making you feel sick because things are not working as they're supposed to be working in your stomach, and it can make your throat feel dry, it can make you heave, your heart's beating really fast, some people think they're going to have a heart attack, you feel as though there's no air, you can hyperventilate because you're breathing funny, all these things building up and up and up, and you can't cope basically, and that is a panic attack. Panic attacks are really not very nice. I wouldn't even wish one on my worst enemy, and I don't really have any enemies to wish them on, but I wouldn't, because it's not a nice feeling, and it is something that prevents you being able to do the things you really want to do, which is the overall really horrible thing about it. Then it results in you feeling depressed, you feel like you're not normal. I used to just get so upset. After every single panic attack, you just feel like absolute crap. You feel drained mentally, you feel drained physically because your heart's been beating so fast. You literally feel like you've run a marathon, but then you have to kind of deal with the fact that this is probably going to happen again, and this is going to stop me from doing the things that I really want to do, which is the worst part of it. I not only had panic attacks, but I had panic disorder, which is where you stop doing things in case you think you're going to have a panic attack. So some people may just have one panic attack and think that was a bit odd, didn't really like that, but carry on as normal and maybe never have a panic attack ever again. Whereas I was the sort of person that would have a panic attack and think, oh my gosh, that was really horrible, now I'm terrified of doing that, and I won't do it. The reason for people having panic attacks in situations where they've been before is because the brain stores away the information as a dangerous situation. So if you walk into a nightclub and you have a panic attack and you freak out, the next time you walk into a nightclub, it's very likely that the same thing is going to happen because your brain triggers the same reaction. It's very clever. The brain is very, very clever. It's also kind of annoying at times. So it will store away the information, and that's why a lot of people will have panic attacks in the same place. For a while, I would always have a panic attack in Paddington train station because every time I got there, the same trigger was set off in my brain that made me think I was in danger when in actual fact I wasn't, and it was almost expected, and because you expect it, it's worse, and that's why it's a vicious circle. I used to get them really, really badly. There was a stage in my life very recently, I went through a really hard time and my panic attacks were really bad, almost to the point where I didn't even want to get out of bed. I wouldn't go on the trains, I wouldn't go to meetings in London, I wouldn't go see friends, I would never eat out in a restaurant because I was worried that I'd panic and I wouldn't be able to get out. I wouldn't ever go clubbing, no way, that would be completely off the cards. It even got to the point where I didn't want to drive, which is really not good, and there are so many different places where I would just panic for no reason. Trains, the tube, in taxis, I used to refuse to get in taxis, on buses, coaches, any kind of form of public transport I wouldn't get on. Waiting for things, that seems kind of odd, but if you're watching this and you have panic attacks, you know exactly what I mean. You know you have to wait and it starts making you anxious. Places where you feel like you can't leave, like a hairdresser's, for example, and waiting for doctor's appointments, like sat in the waiting room. I used to have them at school, in sixth form. I'd have them at family parties where there'd be like 7 of us. I would sometimes even have them lying in bed at night, just for no reason. Work dues, I'd be like, no, sorry, I don't really want to go, and it just makes you appear rude, and you're thinking, please don't hate me, it's not something that I really want, it's not something I enjoy, and I would much rather be completely normal and be able to go and eat out in a restaurant and not care that I might have a panic attack and have to leave. I missed out on a lot of things that I would have normally been doing as a young adult. There was just one period in my life where I was just like, no, I'm not doing anything, and I think that was like the most depressing for like other people around me. I know that Louise was like, I don't like this, you're not happy anymore. It was almost like the Zoe that you see now and the Zoe that people know was not there. Refused to go anywhere, refused to do anything. And that's a sad existence. Like, who wants to live like that?
The structure of panic. Firstly, you have the trigger. Secondly, the subconscious mind interprets the situation. This is where your nervous system becomes sensitized to the situation. Thirdly, the body becomes flooded with adrenaline to help to fight or flee from a perceived danger. Fourthly, the bodily symptoms of adrenaline frighten you. You have no control over steps 1 and 3, but you can learn to have control over the 2nd and 4th steps of the sequence. This fight or flight response occurs to give the body strength for fighting or fleeing. In the example that Zoella gave of the alarm system in a car, there is nothing wrong with its structure. The programming has made it too sensitive. The same is true in the case of panic. Medication is prescribed for anxiety patients to desensitize the nervous system. However, medication is of no help to the vast majority of anxiety sufferers. Yet they keep taking the medication despite the side effects that those medicines can produce. Traditional talk therapy does not address the 4th step of the sequence. While the person feels supported, they're simply helped to manage the symptoms, instead of being helped to break free from the problem. The person can get locked into a lifetime of managing the symptoms and becoming dependent on the therapy. So, what is the method I mentioned earlier that seems to be a real solution to the problem? It is a method created back in the 60s by a psychiatrist, Dr. Claire Weekes. A method described as the only true cure for anxiety. Here is a rare piece of footage where Dr. Weekes talks about the method.
He came back to Vancouver. He lived just outside Vancouver. And the next day he had to go to the bank. But when he went into the queue, waiting for the bank, for the teller, and handed him the same bank book, the same teller, and stood on the same spot where he had panicked so often before, he panicked again, and it was a smasher. And he thought, what will I do now? I've had 18 months practicing getting used to. I've been to America. and I didn't panic. But now I panic and it's worse than ever. You see, he had never faced the symptoms. He'd never learned how to cope with them. It's a superficial electric flash. And that I teach my patients, to go toward it, let it come, let everything happen to the body that will, with utter acceptance. We're changing the mood. We're reversing the pattern. From going into fear, we're going into losing fear through getting used to the actual symptoms, not used to the place. So that in the end, even though the panic flash may still come, and it probably will, it no longer matters as much. It's the no longer mattering that is the key. I teach them that these things no longer matter. And just at the climax of the panic or the symptom, they withdraw. And that's tension, that's more adrenaline, that's more stress hormone, and that is an even stronger experiencing of the symptom. It's utter acceptance, letting it come, even going toward, going out prepared to take what will come. Let one's body do what it wants to do. Don't check it, don't try not to panic, don't think of something else. Into it willingly, just as in Australia, when the big waves come, we don't stand up against them. We get dumped if we do. We go under them willingly. People who are afraid of leaving home for fear they'll have a turn. They're afraid not of the outside, but of themselves. Will they panic? Will they collapse? What will they do in a situation? It's not that they're so much afraid of the school meeting or the hairdresser, but they're afraid that if clamped in the hairdresser's chair, they won't be able to get out quickly enough if they have a panic. And the answer is always the same. Utter acceptance, even of the panic. They have to learn how to take the panic. A deep breath, let it out slowly, let the body slump, and let the panic flash. It is only an electrical discharge. They must not let their life be ruined by an electrical discharge. See it right through. And because they're sensitized, it may linger on for a while, but why worry? What the heck if it lingers on? I know it can be so strong that they think it's impossible to bear. It is never impossible to bear. And it's only by going through that last 1% that they discover this. It's when they withdraw, just as they think it's getting impossible, that they make it more impossible and are defeated by it. But if they are prepared to see it right through, they find peace on the other side of panic. They went through it. They know it. They've done it. That is the way for them to cope with agoraphobia.
So, if you or your loved ones suffer from anxiety, finding a therapist who practices this technique can be life-changing.